AZ Global presents this program in color.
Welcome to Go Northwest. I'm your host, Leif Hansen. Each week we travel the Northwest, bringing you amazing stories of people, places, and events from throughout the region. But right here in Portland, our own backyard is brimming with creativity and beauty, so we've decided to park the VW and explore the city. A good place to start any journey is at the beginning, so that's why we're in Portland's Old Town District. Banked against the shores of the Willamette River, Old Town is Portland's original town center, home to many historic structures, including the classic Union train station and the Skidmore Fountain, which dates back to its dedication in 1888. These days, the Old Town District has experienced a rejuvenation, with restaurants and galleries moving in alongside businesses that have been here for generations. And so today, we're going to meet an artist whose work has been shown in these galleries and learn something about his sense of history and place in Portland.
I started carving when I was a teenager. I took a board and a knife up to my room and carved out a little head. And I was pretty impressed with it. And then just over time, it took about 30 years. But eventually I started to think, wow, maybe I am meant to be a sculptor, although every once in a while I still wonder.
Meet Thomas Rood, Portland-based artist, sculptor, carver, printmaker, and a man who's put his history and the history of the world around him into everything he does.
And then I'm Norwegian ancestry, and they were really into crafts and wood and that sort of thing. But my ex-wife and I, and my son, who was 7 at the time, we moved to Northern California near Point Arena, and we bought some land there, and we lived in a cab-over camper when we were building a house. We got it just basically enclosed, and then we moved into it. It was far from finished. The first year, we bought a bathtub and had it out just in a field, and we heated water on a fire and poured it in the bathtub, and, took turns using the water. Everybody I knew was building a house without a permit in the woods. This is the plan for the whirligig I'm making. And it's a form I've used for a long time. I've taken it from early American work. It was a common form in the late 1800s, early 1900s, and I've made it into a sculptural form. And so it assembles like this. It has arms that spin around, that they go together like this. It's still in progress right now, but the arms will spin around like that. I had always been a cartoonist. I re-saw early American art, folk art, and I just went click, just went off. I was like, wow. Most of this stuff is by just ordinary people who aren't trained artists or anything, just people telling a story. So I really connected in. Benjamin Franklin did a woodcut. Join or Die, a snake that's cut in pieces, was the first known political cartoon in his newspaper. There's a myth that if you cut a snake in pieces, you leave the pieces kind of near each other, that by sundown, it'll join back together. And so that's why I use that snake cut in pieces. And I did this flag of dissent a few years back, and it's about freedom and about rights, and it's created by people, and then the government just says, we like this, and then it stays static. Folk art, so much of it is about movements in the culture throughout America's short history. Lino cut is short for linoleum cut, cutting into linoleum, and there's linoleum glued to this particle board. I do a drawing, and then I'll transfer it on using this transfer paper. I put this transfer paper on, I put the drawing on, and I go over my lines and transfer the drawing on, and then I just carve it into the block. Once I've done that, I can roll ink onto it and print it.
Making art for the people also requires getting it to the people. Thomas's destination today is Portland Saturday Market underneath the Burnside Bridge, where he has sold his artwork for more than a decade.
I'm hanging up these little decos. I call them decos for short for decoupage, and they are miniature versions of my linoleum cuts decoupaged onto little blocks. In the fine art world, this is considered like lesser, but I meet a lot of people here who like my work and want originals. They will go to a gallery where I'm showing and look at my work there. And there's a lot of people that wind up with my work that would never have had it because it's available to people. You know, people can find it down here and they can afford it. There's a woman who sells hats an aisle over who turns 90 this month, and she's still coming out selling her hats. It's a place that you can die with your boots on.
Hi, Toms.
Hi, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Good.
What'd you bring us?
Oh, just a sculpture.
This is the one you sent me in email. Oh, this is
Yeah, yeah,
fantastic. Look at that. Oh, I love it.
Another venue where Thomas makes his art available is the Portland Art Museum's rental sales gallery in downtown Portland. Jennifer Zika manages the gallery and the artists that display their work.
We represent about 250 Oregon and Vancouver, Washington artists, all original works. They're all available for rent as well as for sale. The thing that I really enjoy about working here is it is a huge service to the public in the way of educating the public about Oregon artists, and it also enables just about anyone to afford original artwork. It's a win-win. Oh, Thomas Rude, he's just terrific. There's a lot going on in his work, a lot of detail, and so people spend time with them.
Let's see, I'm sorry, I'm trying to get started. Oh yeah, well, I like to carve. I'm good at carving. And where am I looking right now? Doesn't matter. I'm Thomas Rude, and I do linoleum cut prints, and I spend most of my time. I'm Thomas Rude, and I'm an artist.
Sharing the same city blocks with Old Town is Chinatown, known for its traditional Chinese restaurants. Chinatown's true gem is the Lan Su Chinese Gardens, and that's where we're headed today. With all its surrounding beauty, it's sometimes easy to forget that Portland, like any major city in America, is a city of commerce, of enterprise, and turbulent action. But right in the heart of the city, there is an escape from the clatter of modern life, an urban oasis created in collaboration between East and West.
There are not many gardens in the world like this outside of China. There was a delegation that went from the city to China in 1985 to look for a sister city, and the delegation went to Suzhou. And Suzhou is a place in China that if you were a rich guy in the 1200s to the 1600s, you retired and you built yourself a wonderful home with a glorious garden behind it. Suzhou is a wonderful place with wonderful people, and wouldn't it be wonderful if we made this relationship with Suzhou to have such a garden right here in Portland?
And so it was that a parking lot belonging to Northwest Natural Gas was leased for $1 a year by the city of Portland, and construction began on a traditional Chinese garden.
So over a period of a couple of years, the Suzhou folks sent 65 craftspeople and contractors, plus 2 chefs to cook for them, and they came and they built this amazing garden.
The city and the designers, both the American and the Chinese, had to accommodate each other. American codes, Chinese codes don't always mesh, especially when you're looking at a design that's several hundred years old. Each one of these roof tiles is an individual tile that comes down to what's called a drip tile. When it rains, the rain will kind of come to that point on the drip and then kind of fall off. So you get an effect when it's raining of a beaded curtain that you're looking through to see the garden itself. You know, the city wanted gutters, we wanted tradition. This is how we agreed to split the difference and make it work. The garden is a great place to come escape your busy, hectic life or your stressful workday. You can come in, walk through the garden, take a few deep breaths, kind of collect yourself and go back out.
My name is Joe. I'm Chinese. I was born in Shandong, Jinan Shandong, Shandong province. Portland's definitely a huge coffee town, but I feel like it's just as much of a tea town now. We're gonna do a gongfu ceremony with an oolong tea. And a lot of times people will want to examine the leaves before they do a tea ceremony or any kind of tea because they want to make sure it's of quality. So you can see it by the color of the tea and then also the size of the leaves. Okay, I'm gonna do a warm-up of all the utensils here, and this is a gongfu setup with Yixing clay. Yixing clay is made from a purple clay from this area called Yixing in the Jiangsu province of China. Each time you brew your tea, the clay pot itself will actually absorb the flavor. I'm gonna start pouring the leaves right into the pot. So now I'm gonna brew the first pot of tea. One thing about tea ceremonies is that you want to use plenty of water. The idea is that it's cleansing to pour the water over everything, and also there's the idea of abundance. We'll let it steep for about a minute. There you go. All right, so I'm gonna pour out this first pot of tea. We're gonna cup this cup on top of the taller one. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna flip it like this. And then you can set it back down. You want to use this taller cup to smell the tea. So now you can actually drink your first cup of tea.
Yeah, cheers.
It's good tea. In the end, you need to appreciate the tea for yourself. And so you want to take that time to really meditate on your life and just enjoy it.
All the stone, all the buildings, all the woodworking, all of that came from China. But the plants were sourced from nurseries and individuals here in the Northwest. When you walk into this garden, it feels older than it is. And that has everything to do with the fact that we've got a lot of mature plants in here. From day one, it instantly had that aged feel to it. As you move through the space, there are these almost gardens within gardens. You should never really be able to see where the garden begins and ends. One of the hallmarks of the Chinese garden design is that it feels so much bigger than it actually is. This garden is one city block, which is not a lot of space, but when you look around, you feel there's a whole universe here that manages to, they say, capture the infinite within a finite space.
Next on our agenda, we're leaving the northwest side of Portland downtown via streetcar, crossing over Burnside Avenue to the southwest blocks. While we're here, we're going to make a stop in the Theater District to go behind the scenes of another Portland tradition.
Opera exists to inspire, challenge, and uplift our audiences. Opera is over 400 years old, so there's thousands and thousands of great works. And occasionally we have to challenge our audiences and ourselves.
Welcome to the Portland Opera Company. Founded in 1964, the Portland Opera has become a vital part of Portland's cultural identity.
Opera lovers tend to get very comfortable, and sometimes we can get very settled in our view of a piece. And I feel it's important, if the art form is going to stay alive, that we rock the boat a little bit every now and then.
Which brings us to the company's recent production of the classic opera, Don Giovanni.
It was staged in a very stylized and conceptual way. I grew up in New Jersey going to companies like the Metropolitan Opera and the New York City Opera. And I love beautiful sets and costumes. And it's important that we honor those traditions. All right, are we ready to go in the costume shop? And let's get Figaro's hat on correctly. There we go.
I have been the costumer at Portland Opera since 1980. I sang in the chorus for 18 years. I have costumed Don Giovanni 3 times, and this production was my very favorite. I also was the national anthem singer for the Trailblazers for 12 years. I sang the championship game in 1977.
Our production of Don Giovanni is directed by a major international director named Christopher Alden. And his work tends to be rather provocative and often is unsettling, and certainly this production of Don Giovanni was quite unsettling. Yes, we went far, this director went far with the sex and the violence. And I have a question and answer period after every performance. This production provoked a lot of very intense response, both good and bad. One thing I pointed out to an audience member was, let's look at this story. It's the story of a serial seducer. And we know he seduced literally thousands of women. And within the first 5 minutes of the opera, he murders a father in the act of defending the honor of his daughter from being raped by Don Giovanni. And eventually, you know, the opera climaxes in this great moral reckoning. So we're dealing with fairly substantial stuff in this story. And this is a director that chose to go far with that. He took that part of the opera seriously. So I think part of the reason that opera is becoming so popular, I think, is because people are discovering that it is this great synthesis of drama and design and music. And it can be a feast for the eyes as well as the ears.
And it's in the Portland Opera's mission to serve that feast for the eyes and ears to as many hungry opera fans as possible, in and out of the traditional theater setting.
I'm Alexis Hamilton, and I am the Education and Outreach Manager for the Portland Opera, and the most important thing I do is run our flagship outreach program, Portland Opera to Go. Now, Portland Opera to Go is a program that takes a 50-minute English language version of a famous opera, and we take it out. We go with full costumes and sets and a piano, and we go into the schools and perform the opera. I mean, if you think back to your 7th grade days, everything was a big deal. And in opera, everything's a really big deal. But it gives us an opportunity to feel emotions with a big red paintbrush. You get to feel not just sad. You get to be miserable. You don't get to be just kind of mad. No, you're infuriated, you're outraged.
The Opera House is the one place left on the planet where you still hear an unamplified voice singer. I feel strongly the way in which we build trust with our audience is that no matter what the title of the opera is, that it will be well sung and well conducted, and it will look beautiful, and the sets and costumes will be of a certain level, so that someone leaving our theater and saying, I'm not sure if I like that production of Don Giovanni, but man, the singing, the directing, the conducting was just fabulous. That to me is the ultimate compliment.
Well, we've reached the end of our journey. Thanks for coming along with us. Before we go, I'd love to leave you with another look at the work of Thomas Rood. They say a good traveler has no fixed plans and is not intent on arriving. So with that in mind, I think I'll do a little more exploring today. Why don't you do the same? And maybe we'll cross paths. See you soon. For more information about Go Northwest or any of the stories you've seen, go to www.gonw.tv or visit us on Facebook.